could be instructions, the recipe or formula. So all of that is called mise en place, okay? When you are baking on our side, where is our pantry? Does anybody know where you get the dry goods? Anybody? Bueller? Anybody? Okay? It's all the way on the culinary side, okay? So let's say you're doing chocolate chip cookies. What's one ingredient you need for chocolate chip cookies? Flour. Well, that's here, so that's good. What else do you need?
Chocolate chips.
Chocolate chips. Well, they're all the way back in the freezer. You need salt, right? A little bit of salt. That's all the way in the pantry. Now you can start seeing the paths that you're going to have to take. Wouldn't it be much easier to take your cart and gather all your stuff and bring it here and do one trip, okay? That's called mise en place. Gathering everything up and bringing it to one spot, okay? So my mise en place here, what I need is, I need a stove. Stoves are kept in the cupboard. Oh, no, they're moving. They're back in the boiler room. We'll show you that on the tour. You also need gas for it. That's kept next to the mop room. I created here a double boiler. So I have here is hot water to melt my chocolate, okay? Always melt chocolate on a water bath, okay? So I'm melting this down. What chocolate am I using? It's just semi-sweet bits. Now, as you can see, this is pretty thick, okay? So what I'm going to do is, so I can write it, I'm going to add a little bit of vegetable oil to this. Just pull this off. And I'm just going to add a little bit of vegetable oil to this to thin it out. I don't want to add water, I want to add vegetable oil. So I'm going to let this melt down and I'm going to thin this out. Whenever you do any type of demonstration or you're working on a recipe, you always want to grab a green bucket. You want to fill it with hot soapy water and have it at your station at all times. On culinary, you're going to have a red bucket and you're going to put sanitizing solution in it. On our side, it's hot soapy water because what are our countertops here? Wood. What are the countertops in culinary? Anybody? What are they?
Metal.
Metal, that's right, they're stainless steel. So we want to make sure on his side we use cloth sanitizer, on this side we use hot soapy water. Okay, so you want to gather that. So before I started, I washed my hands, I wiped out my area, I'm ready to go. So some of the things that we're going to need, it's going to tell you right on your lesson plan what you're going to do. So the first thing, I am grading you on these three components. I'm grading you on the flow of how you write. It shouldn't be choppy or jittery, okay? The consistency, making sure that your letters are all the same size so they're legible and you can read them, okay? And then the next thing is uniformity. They should all be the same, all the way across. So, one of the things that I have in here is a little bit of back. Last year was the first year that you, as a student body, were not taught cursive writing. So how many of you in here do not know how to cursive write at all? Only your name. So there's 1, 2, 3, okay, all right. So for those that don't know how to cursive write, here is an example of cursive writing. I also took the letters and I put them together so that you can link them together into the words like happy birthday, congratulations, best wishes. Okay? And then I also attach to this, because you need to know how you're being graded on this, you will always see our grading rubric. So how you're going to be graded on this assignment. So before you do anything, you should always look at the rubric and know what you're trying to achieve an A, what you have to do. Okay? So going back to the cover sheet, I just want to go back over. The first thing we're going to do is proper selection and proper preparation of the chocolate. I talked about the water bath, and how I like to melt chocolate very simply is I put my pot with my water on, bring it to a boil, turn my heat off, and then the warmth of this, I let my chocolate melt. Once my chocolate melts, I'm going to add enough oil to it till I get the consistency of this thing wanting to run, and it's slowly starting to want to run. So I'm going to stir this and make sure all this is melted. I want to turn my heat off because it's plenty hot enough now. I don't need, the warmth of my water will melt my chocolate naturally. All right? So I'm looking at this and I'm still a little on the thick side because when I go to, you can see it's still not quite running. It wants to go up a little bit. Now I will for you, when we do it in the class, I will prep the oil for you. There are companies that make already chocolate that's already prepped to write with. For us with practicing, I'm going to use the cheaper version because it's a lot of waste and a lot of chocolate being used. So we're just going to use semi-sweet bits with a little bit of sour oil. All right, so I have the consistency I want. And I'm just going to stir that out. Now you can see what I'm looking for. All right, so I have a nice streak that I'm going to run. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to create what we call a cornet. Okay? The word cornet comes from the origin word cornet, meaning trumpet. This is the disposable little pastry bag that you will use to write with chocolate. Okay? How to make one of these? All I do is I take a piece of my parchment paper. So this is what we bake on. This is baking paper, parchment paper. I'm going to fold it in half lengthwise. Let me move this out of the way, Chef, so you guys can see. I'm going to fold this lengthwise. I'm going to crease this. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my paring knife and I'm going to score this so I get a really hard crease. You will all be doing this for everything I'm doing here, you will do tomorrow when you do your assignment, okay? And Chef will have post this video so you can rewatch it if you want to. So we're going to go ahead and cut that paper all the way through. And then for those that ever made football out of paper, we're going to fold it over into a triangle like this with a little bit of gap on the end. We're going to crease this again. And then we're going to come up underneath, cut this off. All right. And there we have two cornets. We're going to continue on. Part of your test is cutting your cornets. Okay. So we want to make sure that you know how to cut them and cut them cleanly without the paper ripping and tearing on you. They should be nice, clean cuts. You should end up with 8 cornets when you're done. So we're just going to go ahead, crease that out, come up underneath, use our paring knife, and cut that nice and clean. So I have my 8 cornets. Now, in your packet, it has a picture of how to do this. So you're going to hold your cornet, and I hold it this way, okay? Because I'm right-handed. If you are left-handed, you would hold it this way, okay? So I'm going to take it, and I'm going to fold it up and under like so. Like so. So I have my center to my center. Most students grab it and they think that this is the point. It is not. Fold it down like this. The point is down here. You grab in the center here and you roll over and you create your curve like so. So, okay? Then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll this on my pivot point here. Make sure that that doesn't move. And I'm just going to roll it around. This tail, I'm just going to go ahead and take this and tuck it in and create my cornet. Okay? You don't need any staples. You don't need any tape. Right? So again, I'm going to grab it and I'm just going to roll it up and under like so. Now, you can take your fingers. If you happen to look on the end here and you have a hole, if you just take your fingers and you pull and push like this, you pull and push, it'll close that hole off. So you want it not to have a hole at the end. And then you just fold it under. So when we do this tomorrow, I'm going to want you to roll all of them so we get them all practiced. Now, the first couple you do, you're going to want to pull your hair out, okay? Because it's going to feel like it's a very awkward feeling. After you do it several times, you get more and more comfortable with it. Am I right, gentlemen? Yes. Okay. All right. So that's that. The next thing you're going to do is I have some yardsticks around the corner. Jose prepped this for me, and I put lines on this, just like you have in your packet. Here, I created that here, okay? So I'm gonna open this up, and I'm gonna have my letters here as a reference. I'm gonna take my chocolate, okay? Your cornet has a seam. You see that seam here? That seam needs to be facing you when you fill your cornet. Take your chocolate. I'm going to use one of these. And we want to make sure that we try to stay as clean as possible. All right, so I'm going to put 2 spoonfuls of chocolate in my cornet. Now, what I'm going to do is, again, the seam is facing me. I'm going to fold my cornet in half. Then I'm going to fold one side away from me, and then I'm going to fold the other side away from me. If I fold with the seam, what happens? What's happening? What's happening here? Coming apart. If this comes apart, what's going to happen to the chocolate? It's going to come all over me, right? So if I roll away from the seam, what happens? It gets tighter, doesn't it? Okay, so that's what you want to do. You want to roll away from the seam. So we want to make sure that we keep our outside of our cornet and our hands nice and clean. That's why we have hot soapy water and we have our rag. So we want to make sure that when we're working with chocolate, chocolate stains. Okay, so we want to make sure that we have our hands clean at all times. Whenever I work with chocolate, I try to make sure